Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Madison, and today I wanted to go over some mistakes that I made when I first started collecting plants so that you can hopefully learn from my mistakes and not make them yourself. So let's get into some stuff. All right, so I have 5 things that I want to go over today. So the first thing is when I first started collecting plants, I tried to just collect all of the plants, all the cool plants at the grocery store or my nearby nurseries or anywhere nearby that I could find, relatively inexpensive plants that I thought were cool, and a lot of them because I just wanted to immediately have my house filled with plants. So that's what I did. And because of that, I ended up not truly enjoying and loving all of the plants that I purchased. So then a lot of plants just kind of died because I didn't really care about them. And so I didn't really care to, be checking in on them to see if they needed water or if they were, having way too much water in their soil or whatever. I just wasn't checking in on them at all because I just didn't really care about them. So yeah, if I were to do this whole plant collection thing all over again, I would just start slower. So that's my number one piece of advice when you are starting to really get into plants is just take your time and just collect slowly as you go, and as you realize what plants you really enjoy. Make an actual list. If you have a hard time remembering like I do, make an actual list on your phone of certain plants that you really enjoy the look of and you want to do more research on or whatever. And that way, as you go further in your plant journey, you can kind of go back through and check that list, see which ones you already have acquired, or maybe you find that you don't really like some of those plants that you initially put on there. So you can go ahead and take them off and not worry about searching for them to purchase them and waste your money on a plant that you actually don't like because you've realized that that's not really the plant for me, So just take your time and don't just try and grab all of the cool plants that you see, and that'll just be a little bit better on your budget and a little bit less jarring for you, because when you first start getting plants, you don't realize all the care that can go into having them. So if you just bring a ton of plants into your house at once, the care is definitely going to fall behind pretty quickly. It's just kind of, how it goes. So it's nothing to be feel bad about or anything like that, but it's just something to maybe be aware of. So slow down on your plant buying. Don't be like me. And so kind of going along with that point of buying all of the plants at once, I would also be looking for little plugs. So a lot of nurseries will have sections in their nurseries where they will just sell little 1-inch, 2-inch little plugs of plants. So they're just little starter plants basically, and they're usually, significantly less expensive than their usual 4 or 6-inch pot that you could buy. And it's just kind of a good way to get started with a plant. But I would buy a ton of them. I remember going to Gully Greenhouse when I first started collecting plants years ago, and I would just buy 6 or 8 plugs at a time and just be got all my little plugs. And sure enough, wouldn't know anything about any of them. And a lot of them would die, or I would end up just giving them away to coworkers and friends and stuff because I didn't really know how to care for them, and I was just slowly seeing them die. So I wouldn't want them to die with me. I'd want them to go die with someone else who could maybe try and do a little bit better than me. So yeah, don't just buy a bunch of little plugs, because honestly, some plants do amazing when you buy them as a plug. They'll start popping off new growth for you really quickly, and it'll be really rewarding. But there are certain plants that can be just not the best not the best to buy as a small starter plant, because they could be either just really slow plants to start growing, which as a new plant parent can be kind of discouraging, because you want to start seeing growth pretty quickly, because that'll really keep you reeled in there when you're first starting your new hobby. You want to be able to stay interested and excited. And if you buy, like I did, a little, what was it? Oh, I bought a little tiny plug of a Hoya carnosa compacta, excuse me. So the little, Hindu rope plant. And it was just these 2 little guys that I purchased. I bought 2 little plugs and put them in a little pot together with, I think, no drainage. And they just didn't grow for months. for so long, and I ended up giving that plant away or selling it for like $5 or something on Facebook Marketplace. I think that's what I did. I'm pretty sure I sold it for like $5 because I was just like, I don't know what to do for this plant. He doesn't want to grow for me. I'm sick of just looking at him there. He's kind of making me sad. So I just kind of passed him along to someone else, and I'm sure it grew lovely for them. And you know, once it started get going, I think that those plants are just really slow going. So what I'm getting at is, you know, do some research and see what plants are going to be better to buy as a small starter plant and which ones maybe aren't the best as a starter plant. You might want to buy already established so that it's a little bit more rewarding for you right off the bat. So yeah, don't just go buying all the plugs because they're cheap and they're cute. Yeah. That's the second one. The third mistake that I made as a new plant parent was not checking any of my plants for pests before bringing them home, especially from big box stores. It's usually, hopefully, less of a big deal to check for pests right away when you're buying from a nursery. At least I like to think so. Some nurseries, not so much. So you kind of have to get to know which ones, I guess, to look out for and which ones to not. But for the most part, you definitely want to be checking your plants whenever you're bringing them home from a big box store, especially because they're definitely not checking for pests. They are just getting them out of the boxes and putting them on the floor and arranging them to look, you know, really lovely and shoppable. So not like there's anything wrong with that. That's just, I'm pretty certain that that's not a part of their job. They aren't a specific nursery. They're stocking that department. I'm pretty certain. I've never seen anyone checking for pests before, so that's the only reason I say that. And in talking to a few different people working there at a couple different locations, like Lowe's and Home Depot, they do not check for pests. So you definitely want to do your due diligence when you are bringing any new plants home from anywhere, but especially big box stores. So because I didn't do that, I would bring home these like beautiful calathea. I remember bringing home like a calathea ornata a couple of times, like, yeah, at least 2 times bringing home a calathea ornata from a Home Depot or a Lowe's, you know, $12, $13, maybe $15. So, I mean, it is a good amount of money. It adds up, you know, when you're just not looking and you don't realize that you need to be looking for pests and they die like so fast when they get home because the spider mites just attack, and then you don't realize it needs to be staying pretty moist, and because it's pretty moist, it's also going to be attracting other pests that you need to be looking out for but you don't know about yet. So there are just so many different things, but spider mites especially, I would say you really need to be on the lookout for, especially if you are buying a calathea or any sort of plant like that at, honestly, any plant you're buying from a big box store. You definitely need to be looking for spider mites throughout them, or mealybugs. So if you're looking for spider mites, you want to be looking for webbing along the backs of the leaves, especially if it's a darker back to the leaf, a darker abaxial. It'll be much easier to spot those like white clusters of webs or white little dot clusters. Those, I believe, are like the eggs maybe. I don't really know, but they're spider mites. So be on the lookout for that. And I'm not saying that if a plant has spider mites or like a small case of spider mites, not to buy it, because you can still absolutely treat them. So yeah, don't let that be a complete deterrent, but just be aware of it so that you can go through those steps of treatment when you get that plant home. So just washing it off and soaking it down and isolating it from some other plants if that's possible. If not, just maybe, do you hear that squirrel outside? Oh my gosh. Just maybe not letting that plant's leaves touch your other plant leaves, you know what I mean? To kind of stop the spread if there are any pests remaining on that plant after you go through those cleaning steps, which I did a video on what I do when I bring new plants home. It's not like my full insecticidal spray down walkthrough. I haven't done that quite yet. I still need to do that before I have my next surgery. So I will be doing that within like the next couple of weeks here. But that video does go over like the steps that I usually follow for myself when I bring home new plants. So, and that's like from anywhere. So check that video out, like somewhere up here or over here, I don't know. But check that video out, and that will hopefully help you kind of know what to do when you bring new plants home. I'm not saying it's like, you know, be all end all, that's what you need to do and nothing else. But, you know, it's just kind of like a light guideline of some things that you could do to help prevent pest spreadage from your plants. So yeah, check your plants for pests. Just do it. It's better to do it than not do it. Even after you've had them home for a while and you don't think there's any pests on them, it's really good to just like do a walkthrough check of your plants. I was never doing that either. So not only was I not checking the plants for pests when I would bring them home or before I would bring them home from the store, I was also not doing any sort of routine checking of the leaves once they were in my house. I was just like, oh, they're here. They're beautiful. Cool. That's all. They'll live forever now, right? So yeah, that's not always the case. So do your due diligence and check your plant leaves and you'll be good. Number 4 of mistakes that I made when I first started collecting new houseplants was not doing any research on any of the plants other than like what it was. I wasn't doing any sort of research on the care for the plants. I was just trying to figure out a name if I could. And if not, then that's all right, whatever. It's just a pretty plant. I'm bringing it into my house, it'll be fine. That's just not the case all the time. Some plants are easy like that and did absolutely fine, which was awesome. But there were quite a few plants that really started to go downhill once I brought them home because I just didn't know what their care was. And it's really simple to figure it out. It's just a simple Google search usually. So definitely do your research and don't treat all your plants the same because that's what I was doing. I was just treating all of my plants the same. I would put them all in front of the window, on a windowsill, and water them all like the same day, like every 2 or 3 days because, you know, I was a new plant parent and I was really eager to be caring for my plants to the very best of my ability. And that meant just giving them as much water and light as possible. Or at least that's what I thought. And also not giving them any sort of fertilizer because like, what's that? That's just for outside plants, right? Like, that's what I thought. So I had no idea. So yeah, now I definitely do my research. If not before I bring a plant home, like I probably should, at least once it's in my house, I do some research and see, okay, what kind of light does this kind of plant want? Does it want really high light, lower light, somewhere in between? Does it like to dry out a bunch? Or does it like to kind of keep some moist soil for most of the time? So what those care requirements are really going to determine how you care for your plant, obviously. Wow, that was groundbreaking information. But yeah, it's just really important. I know it sounds silly and just like a, you know, duh thing, but I didn't think of that when I first started bringing plants home. So I don't know, I thought it would be good to mention, not all plants want to be treated the same. You know what I mean? They want different light, they want different water amounts, and they want different feed amounts as well. So it all just kind of depends, and it's up to us to do that research so that we can hopefully care to that plant to the best of our ability. So yeah, don't treat all your plants the same, I guess. And don't be on a strict watering schedule. I think I should mention that as well, because I was really trying to do that when I first started collecting plants. I was like, okay, every 2 to 3 days, the plants need to be soaked in water and no drainage holes, which I'm not saying, you know, no drainage holes is a bad thing. Some plants absolutely thrive in it. And I think honestly, most plants can probably thrive in no drainage hole potting environments. Like there are a ton of YouTubers that do no drainage hole, what am I trying to say? Just no drainage hole pots for their plants, and they're fantastic. They're beautiful, they're healthy, and they're not missing that drainage hole. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that that is bad by any means, but with the amount that I was watering and the soil that I was using, which was just from the bag, not adding any extra elements to the soil, it was just so bogged down and so heavy, and then eventually so compacted that the roots would just like rot and die, and the plants would just like fall over and just be dead. So don't do that. Hopefully try to learn from some of my mistakes and do some research and see if you want to do no drainage potting, then make sure you are using corresponding substrate and stuff like that for it. I'm not exactly the best person to talk to you about no drainage potting. I don't think I have. Actually, I think I have one plant that is in a no drainage hole, in a no drainage pot, that is one of the first plants I think that I got once I really started getting more plants into my house, and it is doing absolutely fine. It's a holiday cactus. It's doing great. But There are a ton of YouTubers that do a really, really great job. I will pop some names up on the screen for you because they do a beautiful job. I want to say Unplant Parenthood does a beautiful job. Her plants are banging. I think her name is Charmaine. She's so cute, and her little dog is just adorable. Oh my God. But she does amazing no drainage potting. So check out her videos. She does amazing videos. Like, the quality is just like top notch. So check her stuff out as well, because she offers some really good knowledge on all of that kind of information. So yeah. Anyway, so what is the last thing I wanted to go over? Light. I did not understand light at all as a new plant parent. I'm gonna be fully honest. I don't totally understand light still. Like, what is medium light? Like, I don't know, in the middle of the room? I have no idea. So when I first started collecting plants, like I said before, would put all of my plants along the windowsill, all of them. If they didn't fit on the windowsill, they're gonna die. Like, they needed to be on the windowsill because that is where the light was. The light didn't go anywhere else except for on the windowsill, if you asked me a couple years ago. So it took me quite a while to realize, like, some plants, that is way too much light and they do not like that. They're gonna burn and crisp and dry up and die. Other plants, they're like, what are you doing? I don't like it. They just don't like it. And I just took me a long time to realize that light reaches a lot of spaces in your room, and plants want different light requirements. And just because you don't have the certain light requirements that your windows are offering you that your plants want, you can get supplemental light, and that will work beautifully. And they have some really nice looking supplemental light. I'm not going to say that mine is the most beautiful in my living room with my strips on the ceiling. It's not my absolute favorite, I'm going to tell you right now, but it works really well for what I'm doing right now, and I don't hate the way that it looks. I don't love the way that it looks, but I absolutely don't hate it, and I think that it's fine and cozy. So you can absolutely have supplemental light in your house so that your plants can be really, really happy when they're like farther away from a window. And sometimes it's not even necessary. You can just have your regular light bulbs of your house, and that will be sometimes enough for certain plants. Figure out which direction your windows are facing. Figure out where the sun hits throughout the different parts of the day, especially like on a day off, if you're just hanging out at your house, kind of pay attention and take note to where the sun is hitting throughout the day. And don't be afraid to move your plants around. I was really scared to do that at first too. So, like I said, if they're not gonna live on the windowsill, they're probably gonna die. And that's just what I thought. So I was terrified to move any plants further away from the window until they were like at death's door on the windowsill. I was like, okay, I guess I'll move you. Like, oh, sorry. But now I will try and put a plant, like my window's right here. I'll put one way on the other side of the room and just see how it fares for a couple months. It might just take some time to get acclimated. So it might look like crap for, a couple weeks or something. I still will probably leave it for a little bit and just see if it kind of gets acclimated to its new light environment. And usually it does, to be totally honest with you. So sometimes you just have to go through that like ugly haircut period, and then you're acclimated and you're good to go in your new home. So, don't be afraid to move your stuff around. Don't be afraid to experiment when you get new plants into your house, and do your research too. And that will help you kind of know where to begin as far as your experimentation goes of where you're going to put your plant. So yeah, I think that is all I will go over today. I feel like I'm just going to be talking your ear off forever, because there's a lot of different mistakes and things that I could have done better and can still do better. Frankly, there's always going to be mistakes that I make here as a plant parent. Nothing is going to be perfect, and that's okay. Like, plants aren't perfect. The outside environment that they would live in nature, also is not perfect. Just have fun with your plants. Enjoy them. Enjoy them. All right, guys, I will stop talking now. Thank you so much for joining me for just this like kind of maybe more boring sit down video, just chatting. But I really enjoyed going over all of this with you guys. It's really fun reflecting on just past plant adventures and stuff like that. So thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I love talking to you guys down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.